Hi, and welcome back to Woman2Woman. Well, I know it's an incredibly difficult and challenging time right now. However, we are doing our best to stay connected at Woman2Woman. Well, this year we're looking at the disciples. We're looking at what it means to be a disciple, a follower of Jesus. Now, I know it's difficult right now because of social distancing and self-isolation to get out there and actually be a disciple. However, it is an incredibly important time right now. It is a time for us to step up and be a disciple, to press into Jesus like never before, and to be love and to be life and to be an encouragement to those around us right now. And if that means we need to do that over the phone, then that's what we need to do. So we've been looking at the 12 disciples and we're more than halfway through so far. What we've really enjoyed so much about learning about the disciples is the fact that they were just ordinary men who responded to Jesus, ordinary men who made themselves available to Jesus. However, they didn't get it right all the time. They weren't perfect. We have read about that. But Jesus was always loving, always compassionate with them. He would take them aside, he would gently speak to them, he would teach them the right way to live. We saw that when he reinstated Peter on the beach, and when he took the sons of thunder, James and John, aside, and he spoke to them about walking away from conflict. He really gently loved them and restored them. That gives us hope because we don't always get it right either. We've also looked at the fact that their names were very significant. Many of them had nicknames. And the guy that we were going to look at today, Thomas, well, he had several names also. Thomas, also known as Didymus, his Greek name. Both names mean twin. However, there's not much recorded in Scripture about Thomas's twin. However, you may know him or remember him as Doubting Thomas. Yes, that was his nickname. Well, after Jesus died, the rest of the disciples, well, they met together in the upper room. John's Gospel, chapter 20, we read about that. Now, how were they feeling? Well, they were overwhelmed. They were overwhelmed with grief and with sadness and with disappointment. This was not what they expected. This is not what they believed would happen. They had lost Jesus. Their hearts were broken. They were overwhelmed with despair. And maybe you're tuning in this morning and that's how you feel, overwhelmed with grief and with sadness. You're looking around at the world in which we're living in today and there is much suffering, and maybe you feel helpless and hopeless right now. Well, that's how the disciples felt as they met together in that room. However, we read in chapter 20 of John that Thomas wasn't there. Perhaps the pain and the grief and the sadness and the confusion and the disappointment caused him to retreat. Maybe he just couldn't be with the others. Maybe he just felt overwhelmed with sadness, that a heaviness had just come upon him and he just couldn't be around other people. I wonder if you've ever felt like that, or that you're tuning in this morning and you just feel a heaviness right now. Well, Jesus turns up. He turns up in the room, the resurrected Jesus, and he reveals himself to the disciples. How incredible. Hope standing there in the middle of your living room. Anyway, later on, the brothers share with Thomas all that is taking place. They tell him about Jesus turning up. However, Thomas is overwhelmed with doubt. And he says, unless I see the marks in his hands, I won't believe. He was so overwhelmed with doubt, perhaps brought on by fear, perhaps brought on by confusion and hopelessness, but he wanted the hard facts. I wonder if that's how you feel today, that you need the facts. You look around and you're watching the news, the stats are coming out, and you're just feeling overwhelmed with sadness, gripped by fear. Well, Thomas vocalized that fear. He vocalised how he was feeling, but I don't believe that he was the only one to feel that way, to have doubts. In fact, when Jesus died at the cross, the only disciple that was there was John and the women. The rest weren't there. So maybe Thomas was the only one that actually just opened up his heart and said, this is how I'm feeling. I'm filled with doubt. So it's okay to feel that way. You know, faith is not the absence of doubt. We all doubt. Faith is how we get through that doubt. Faith is how we overcome that doubt. So maybe you're tuning in this morning and you feel this way too. You feel filled with doubt. You'd love to have hope right now in this sad and sorry situation that our world is in right now. But you feel filled with doubt. Well, Jesus knows you feel that way. He knows you feel that way. He doesn't condemn us for that. In fact, he turns up a week later. He shows up in that room again. In fact, he doesn't come through the door because the door's closed. He's just supernaturally appeared. I think he did that just for Thomas. Just to show Thomas that he can do anything. That he can do immeasurably more than we could ever think, dream or imagine. And he shows up and he says, peace be with you. Verse 26. Peace be with you. Jesus brings us peace. And he was standing there once again in the middle of that room. And he turns to Thomas. And he says to Thomas, put your hands here. Put your hands in my side. And he does. And he says to him, stop doubting and believe. Then Thomas turns and he says, Lord, you are my God. So today, this morning as you tune in, are you filled with doubt, overwhelmed by fear and sadness? You know, faith is not the absence of doubt. Faith is believing that God can do more than you can ever imagine. So turn to Jesus today. Allow him to bring you that perfect peace. Allow his love to drive out that fear. Allow him to fill your heart with hope today. For he says, peace be with you. Until next time, God bless.